It all started quietly, the kind of quiet that hides a storm underneath. For months, people had noticed something different about Keith Urban. His smile seemed more distant, his energy on stage more forced, and his interviews felt like he was reading from a script he didn't believe in anymore. Nobody could quite put their finger on what was going on, until a few photos appeared online that sent the country music world into absolute chaos. Keith Urban and Kelsea Ballerini. At first, the photo harmless. Just two country stars laughing backstage at an award show, holding coffee cups, maybe whispering something funny to each other. But in this industry, where body language speaks louder than words, fans noticed the look in Keith's eyes. It wasn't the polite, distant look of a married man making small talk. It was softer, closer, familiar. And suddenly everyone started asking the same question. What's really going on between Keith Urban and Kelsea Ballerini? Because one thing was clear, this wasn't just another industry friendship. Something deeper was forming, and it was happening right under everyone's noses, including Nicole Kidman's. It's no secret that Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman's marriage has been under the microscope for years. From the outside, they've always looked picture perfect, Hollywood's elegant actress married to the charming country singer. But insiders have whispered for a long time that things weren't as perfect as they seemed. The late-night tours, the long separations, the endless award shows where Nicole smiled for the cameras while Keith's eyes seemed somewhere else. And recently, Nicole's solo appearances had become more and more frequent. Fans noticed she attended major events alone. No Keith, no matching smiles. Just Nicole, radiant, poised, but distant. People wondered if they were just living separate lives. Then came Kelsea. Kelsea Ballerini, the rising star who's been the golden girl of country music for years, had just gone through a very public breakup with Chase Stokes. She was young, free, ambitious, and stepping into a new era of her career. And who better to guide her than Keith Urban, one of the biggest names in the business? It started with collaborations. They were both judges at music shows, they performed at a few festivals, and then Kelsea joined Keith on a tour for a few guest performances. Fans adored their chemistry. Their duets felt natural, playful, and even electric at times. But somewhere between rehearsals, backstage banter, and long nights after shows, that chemistry stopped being just for the stage. People close to the two of them started noticing how protective Keith had become. He'd wait for her after performances, walk her to her car, sometimes even cancel his own plans to make sure she was okay. One source described it as a big brother kind of care that slowly stopped feeling like that. And when Nicole found out, everything changed. Nicole Kidman had always been the calm one, the woman who carried herself with grace no matter what rumors swirled around her. But this time, she wasn't calm. She reportedly confronted Keith after seeing a series of behind-the-scenes videos showing him and Kelsea laughing a little too close. The way his hand lingered on her shoulder, the way Kelsea leaned in when she talked, Nicole knew that look. She'd seen it before, years ago, back when Keith was still struggling with his demons, and she was the one pulling him out of darkness. Sources say that night ended with tears, shouting, and silence. Keith reportedly tried to explain that it was just artistic chemistry, that Kelsea was like a mentee. But Nicole wasn't buying it. Because sometimes, what's left unsaid says everything. The next few weeks told the story louder than words ever could. Keith and Nicole stopped appearing together altogether. Nicole attended a red carpet premiere alone, stunning in a red dress but noticeably tense when asked about Keith. All she said was, "We're both focusing on our work right now." Meanwhile, Keith and Kelsea were spotted at a Nashville cafe, laughing like two people who had nothing to hide. But they did have something to hide, or at least, something they couldn't explain yet. What started as innocent support had turned into late-night studio sessions, emotional text exchanges, and one too many private moments that blurred every line. By the time fans caught on, the narrative had already shifted, not just friends, but something more. Online detectives dug deeper. Old clips resurfaced, moments people had ignored before now looked suspicious. The way Keith introduced Kelsea on stage with words like, "one of my favorite people in the world," The way he watched her perform like she was the only one in the room. It was all there. And then came the video that broke the internet. A fan recorded a behind-the-scenes moment at a recent festival. Keith was sitting with his guitar, softly strumming a melody, and Kelsea walked in wearing a simple white t-shirt. She sat next to him, whispered something, and they both laughed. Then, without realizing the camera was still rolling, Keith looked at her and said quietly, "You're my muse these days." That one sentence was enough to set social media on fire. Within hours, hashtags like "on Keith and Kelsea" and "Nicole deserves better" were trending. Fans were divided. Some accused Keith of emotional betrayal, while others said he was just connecting artistically. But Nicole's silence spoke volumes. She posted a cryptic quote on her Instagram story that said, "You can love someone deeply and still realize you can't live in their shadow forever." It was raw. It was personal, and everyone knew exactly who it was about. Meanwhile, Keith tried to control the damage. He gave interviews downplaying the situation, saying he and Kelsea were just close colleagues. But the more he denied it, the less people believed him, especially after Kelsea released a new song that seemed to tell the real story. The lyrics went something like, "You said I was your melody, but someone else was your song." Fans immediately linked it to Keith. It sounded like heartbreak, the kind that comes from falling for someone who can't fully be yours. Insiders say Nicole and Keith have been living apart for months now. She's been focusing on her upcoming film projects, spending more time in LA, while Keith's been staying in Nashville, surrounded by music, and Kelsea. And just when people thought the drama had peaked, something unexpected happened. Nicole showed up at an event in Sydney wearing what tabloids are now calling her revenge dress. A sleek, black gown that screamed confidence and defiance. She walked the carpet alone, head held high with reporters shouting questions about Keith. But she didn't stop once. She smiled, waved, and kept walking. It was clear. This was the rebirth of Nicole Kidman. Behind the scenes, people close to her said she'd finally accepted that she can't keep saving someone who doesn't want to be saved. Meanwhile, Kelsea's team was reportedly growing nervous. The attention had become overwhelming. Her name was everywhere, not for her music, but for being the reason a Hollywood marriage was collapsing. Some fans started turning on her, calling her the home wrecker of country music. She went silent for weeks, only breaking it with an emotional message to fans saying, "Sometimes life gets loud, and the best thing you can do is listen to your own heart." It wasn't a denial. It wasn't a confession. But it said everything. Then came the shocking twist. Keith and Kelsea were seen again. This time not backstage or at a cafe, but at a private benefit dinner in Nashville. Eyewitnesses said they looked comfortable, but not romantic. Keith reportedly looked exhausted, like someone who had lost control of his own story. And the truth is, maybe he had. Because behind all the rumors, behind the headlines and the photos, there's a real man torn between two worlds. The woman who built him up and stood by him through everything, and the woman who reignited a spark he thought he'd lost years ago. Some say Keith and Nicole are quietly working through things in therapy. Others say they're done for good. That this time, Nicole's heart has closed for good. But one thing's certain, Keith Urban's name will never sound the same again. His image as the charming country star, devoted husband and reformed man has been shaken in a way that might never fully recover. And as for Kelsea, she's caught in the crossfire of a love story she never meant to be part of. In a recent performance, she paused before singing and told the audience, "Sometimes, being someone's muse isn't as beautiful as it sounds." Her voice cracked, just slightly, but enough to make the crowd go silent. Was she talking about Keith? Everyone in that room knew she was. The fallout has been brutal. Tabloids, fans, and insiders keep spinning their own versions of what happened. Some call it fate, some call it betrayal. But maybe it's just two people who got lost while chasing the feeling that used to make them feel alive. Nicole, on the other hand, has been glowing, focused, confident, and surrounded by her children and close friends. She's no longer trying to fix the narrative. She's letting it burn and walking out of the flames stronger than ever. Because for her, this isn't about Keith anymore. It's about rediscovering herself after years of living for someone else's music. And Keith? He's still out there performing, smiling for the crowd, holding his guitar like it's the only thing he can still control. But his eyes, they tell a story of regret. A story of a man who had everything: love, loyalty, and stability, and somehow let it slip away while chasing something he couldn't even define. In the end, this isn't just a story about love and betrayal, it's about timing. Sometimes, even the strongest love can't survive when two people begin speaking different emotional languages. Kelsea has moved on, focusing on her music and herself, though maybe she still remembers the moment Keith called her his muse. Perhaps Keith does too, realizing what it cost him. Nicole once said, "I don't need perfection. I just need honesty." Maybe that honesty came too late. Hearts broke, trust faded, and lives changed. Fame fades, but the words we whisper in the dark, they stay forever.